Good evening. We're the anchors of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we discuss the queer headlines. Pick News CEO's leaked audio reveals his plans to reduce transgender coverage. The audio has ignited backlash from the LGBTQ community for prioritizing profits over advocacy.
Florida school board candidates endorsed by DeSantis and Moms for Liberty face defeats in primaries, with only 5 out of 23 candidates winning.
Rachel Maddow raises alarms about Trump-supporting Republicans potentially refusing to certify election results. Will they try to steal the election?
A new study finds LGBTQ individuals face higher rates of police stops and abuse, causing an increase in distrust in law enforcement.
Ashley Brundage secures the Democratic nomination for Florida House District 65, aiming to become Florida's first transgender legislator.
Good evening. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels. We're proud to announce that YouTube has recognized Queer News Tonight, certified by analytics company vidIQ, that we now have more than 9.5 million views. More than 500,000 of you have watched this show in the last 60 days. Thank you. It is Thursday, August 22nd, 2024. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ news, you will see it and hear it.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ community. Our mission? To support the 11 pillars of our LGBTQ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. In 2024, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and the broader community.
Well, let's meet tonight's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome Alex Morash. Alex has written for The Advocate and served as editor-in-chief of Options magazines. He has also served as media director for the National LGBTQ Task Force and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you for having me on, Jonathan. I'm all excited for tonight. There's so much going on here, and people keep bugging me about the DNC. To all my friends there, keep having a wonderful time on the final night.
Okay, good. Well, we're going to defer to you on those subjects. Okay, let's welcome Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 2 short story collections and 7 books of poetry. He's an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and reviews run in a variety of print and online publications. Welcome, Gregg.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here once again.
Poetry. I didn't really know you had written poetry.
Yeah.
I guess I never introduced you. That's amazing. I want to hear some of that later.
Someday.
Okay. Next, let's welcome anchor Dr. Bobby Huen. He is a certified civil and family mediator and a founder of BH Conflict Resolution Services. From Hong Kong and having grown up across the world, he can offer a queer global perspective on current events. Bobby, Pride Fantasia 2024 is on September 12th at the Manor. The event will benefit Sunserve's LGBTQ youth. Tell me what's happening, even though I'm going to be in it.
Then you can just tell me what's going to happen. I know. So this Pride Fantasia was originally scheduled just before the official Pride in June. Unfortunately, it was rained out due to torrential downpour.
Yes.
We now have every other month or so. So, Jonathan, you're going to be in it. So,
yeah. There's a lot of local artists, a lot of international artists as well. But we are going to sing our little coulda, shoulda, wouldas off. It's very, very It's very sad that it wasn't able to happen. Sad for Sunserve and for Pride Fantasia and for those involved from P-Town like Jonathan Hawkins and Matthew Darren. But yeah, we're back. We're already in rehearsal, so hopefully we can show you guys a little bit of a good show and, bring Pride back to Wilton Manors.
Bring it back. Yes. And of course, this is tonight's lead anchor, Jonathan Casañas. A board member of Forward Miami, he is also one of the producers of the Gay Ocho Festival, the largest Latin diversity and inclusion festival in the nation. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Well, we are the reporters of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for Thursday, August 22, 2024. Let's queer up by breaking news. Trans community boycott of Pink News and CEO Benjamin Cohen over being incredibly contentious. In a shocking revelation, Pink News, the UK's leading LGBTQ media outlet, has come under fire after a leaked recording of CEO Benjamin Cohen surfaced, signaling a drastic shift in the company's focus away from transgender issues. Pink News is one of the world's most respected LGBTQ media outlets that Queer News Tonight often references. The audio, leaked on social media by a Twitter account under the handle @PinkNewsStaff, captures Cohen making statements that have sent shockwaves to the LGBTQ community. In the recording, Cohen is heard advising caution, stating, quote, "We have to be careful." He goes on to emphasize that it is, quote, "the role of others to change narratives," suggesting that continued coverage of transgender issues could result in a loss of advertising revenue for the company. This revelation has sparked outrage for many in social media, especially given Pink News' reputation as a champion for the entire LGBTQ community. Cohen's comments suggest a calculated move to distance the outlet from what he describes as incredibly contentious issues, specifically those concerning the transgender community. The audio concludes by saying, "We don't want to be positioning ourselves as some sort of charity."
Things that relate to trans and non-binary remain incredibly contentious. I think that the marriage, the idea, and we're celebrating 10 years of same-sex marriage this year, I think that the society has moved on and it has been generally accepted. And while, yes, when we were doing it, it was contentious, I think that the other things are even more contentious than that was then, and are significantly contentious now, and there is significant brand and partner nervousness around that topic. And so, in my view, they are different things. I think that we just have to be careful, and it's that's for others to do. And also the business can't afford to do that. It's the role of others to seek to change narratives. If we start doing too many things, I think it will harm the conversations with advertisers for other things, because it gives the perception that Pink News is something different to it is. What we are is an entertainment content powerhouse. We don't want to be positioning ourselves as some sort of charity.
Angry community members are flooding social media, talking about the contrast between Pink News' mission statement and Cohen's views. The account @PinkNewsStaff, which joined Twitter in May 2024, has been active in releasing a series of allegations against the outlet, including claims of toxic culture marked by alleged bullying, harassment, and discrimination. We have seen corporate brands and businesses surrendering to conservative bullies and bans. Many early comments in social media draw comparisons to corporate entities caving to pressure over trans and LGBTQ issues, and alleged Pink News may be doing the same thing. This is a breaking and evolving story, and Queer News Tonight will continue to follow and report updates. It's true. I mean, we saw Target do it. We were kind of threatening Walmart if they were going to do it as well. I mean, I have 2 points here that make me nervous, because I don't want to, I want to play devil's advocate, but I also don't want to play devil's advocate, because this was a leaked audio. We weren't supposed to hear it, right? So this is all kind of, stuff that was supposed to happen behind the scenes, maybe not a viewpoint he wanted out in public. But if you think about it, trans issues have become kind of tied into all these other very, very tumultuous events that to be frank, ties them into people who are not mentally stable, people who are calling themselves or referring to themselves as bugs, when they want to identify as a bug. So if you think about it, you're like, yeah, sure, maybe we shouldn't identify in this moment right now. But then you're talking about Pink News, which is a leading LGBTQ outlet who should be supportive in a major way. So maybe a Target and Pink News have nothing to do with each other because Target is not an advocacy of the trans community.
Right.
Well, there's also the fact that Pink News, which is based in Britain, there's a lot. If you think that the U.S. transphobes are bad, they literally have a billionaire woman who basically rail against trans rights every single damn week. J.K. Rowling has nothing to do. She's not counting her Harry Potter money. She is just basically railed against trans persons all day long. I can see why he wants to reduce coverage as a business decision.
Right.
But on the other hand, as a LGBTQ news outlet, that's an incredibly bad move, at least bad looking.
Right. I mean, you could maybe see this, imagine this at like a mainstream publication, right? But a publication that is by and for LGBTQ people, you would think it seems like it's contrary to their mission, right?
Exactly. As someone who's run an LGBTQ magazine, it was very weird to hear this. Because on the one hand, like, I'm used to having the conversations where, like, you want to try and make sure your advertisers are happy, you want to keep your readers happy. But some of it just didn't make sense to me. Like, I understand that, people say, like, well, the LGBTQ community, it's everybody, maybe articles you claim don't get as much with trans, but at least at Options, we always got plenty of views on the trans content.
Right.
We never had advertisers saying any of this stuff.
Right.
The words that really struck me, like, as not just someone who's run a magazine, but someone who has for years been a judge in the Excellence in Journalism Awards for the National LGBTQ Journalists Association, was his claim that we are an entertainment content powerhouse. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you do position yourself as a news outlet on LGBTQ content. You do like...
News is in their name.
Right? And think we're not a charity. Like, I'll remind people that not only has Options not been a for-profit, Hotspots is also a magazine and stuff. Somehow these two nonprofit magazines are able to both do entertainment news and investigative journalism for the LGBT community. So this Cohen, I mean, if he wants my personal advice, I'd say, Pink News, if you're looking for a new editor, hi, I love money, and
I also
think
volunteer as well.
Well, wait, what do you guys think? What do you make of this charity comment? What was that supposed to mean?
It was bizarre.
Yeah.
Like
I'm doing you a favor by putting you in our publication?
right? Like that's literally their job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or
it's to cover the community. It's not
Exactly.
charity, it's the community.
I think he's referring to the fact that if they lose advertisers, then they're going to run at a loss, and that's what he was referring to as charity.
But again, if you're going to advertise in Pink News, it's Pink
Sure.
News.
I'm assuming a sponsor may have said something got into his brain, because why else would he kind of have this position? And this was a position, again, behind closed doors. What would those words have been in public that were contrasting to his views?
This is that other part of the story of the, who are these advertisers pushing this? Because that's very disturbing. Because I will say the only thing I'll say in sort of defense of him, every time you've seen a queer or a non-mainstream news outlet go and mess with their funder, and I'm talking about like Into Magazine decided it would be okay to do reporting about its owner Grindr.
Yeah.
Grindr shut it down. Think Progress started actually reporting on what the Center for American Progress was doing that was inappropriate. Think Progress got shut down.
Yeah.
So if there's any truth to this, that's concerning, because there is no good record for media outlets withstanding this. But at the same time, like, who are these advertisers doing this?
And also, in the days of AI and fake news and Project Veritas and all that crap, we do not know about
About the source of this.
the source of this. It can be quoted. It can be quoted out of context.
Right.
Yeah.
It can be AI generated, or it can be spliced, like the way that Project Veritas does.
It could, but unless we have any proof of that at the moment, like this does sound a lot like what an editor having like a meeting with his advertisers sounds like. To my knowledge, this is the person's voice. I mean, we could be wrong. We could all have egg on our face over it, but at the moment, I have a feeling it's more likely to be accurate than
Well,
not.
let's see how they respond. We'll stick with it, so stay tuned on that. All right, next let's queer up South Florida and Florida. DeSantis-backed school board candidates defeated in Florida elections. In a decisive blow to the parental rights movement, two Florida candidates, school board candidates, endorsed by Governor Ron DeSantis and the anti-LGBTQ group Moms for Liberty were defeated in this week's primary elections, while a third headed to a runoff. Of the 23 school board endorsements made by DeSantis, only 5 won, 12 lost, and 6 advanced to the November runoff. In Pinellas County, incumbents Laura Huen and Eileen Long successfully defended their seats against far-right challengers backed by DeSantis and Moms for Liberty. Despite an aggressive campaign for Moms for Liberty, who argued for a parental rights agenda, Huen won 69% of the vote against Danielle Maroff's 31%, while Long defeated Erica Picard with 54% to 46%. A third candidate, Katie Blacksburg, who opposed the Moms for Liberty agenda, secured 35% of the vote, forcing a runoff against Stacey Geyer, who received 37%. Blacksburg criticized the parental rights activist, saying the misinformation, this is a quote, "the misinformation and the intent to place mistrust in our teachers, people are tired of it," end quote. Board President Huen emphasized the importance of stability in education, saying, quote, we have got to stay focused on the work at hand. Moms for Liberty has been attempting a comeback after scandals involving their co-founder, Bridget Ziegler, but their influence seems to be waning. These elections on DeSantis and radical Moms for Liberty have dramatic effects on the LGBTQ community, on the schools, the teachers, and the students, and the parents. Now, I don't know if you guys remember Bridget Ziegler. Which makes this so much fun. The one who had the threesome, as they call it, a bisexual threesomes, who apparently is advocating against the LGBTQ community. So it seems like maybe the state is turning around a little bit, maybe in some of these areas, but it is good news. It's a slap in the face for Liberty, Moms for Liberty. And DeSantis, and I hope we continue on kind of this motion.
Well, I was going to say that voters kicked DeSantis in the nuts, but his soulmate and broodmare already cut them off months ago when he dropped out of the POTUS race. And if you listen closely, you can kind of hear them rattling around the bottom of her knockoff Birkin.
Wow.
Yeah.
But actually, I think I want to just point out this general trend, right? Moms for Liberty, conservative, the ones who hate LGBTQ plus community, among many, many things that they hate, I feel like the country is going through a fatigue phase. There's so much, we've run on hate for 4 years during 17 to 21, and now they're running on it again, but the audience seems to be less receptive. The same way that compared to RNC to the DNC, which is happening right now, the DNC is much more energetic and hopeful and joyful versus RNC's like, the sky is falling, American carnage, everything is dead.
I think there's some truth to the fatigue. I also think that this is proof that Ron DeSantis doesn't have as much support as people think. Because, I remember seeing from afar his re-election campaign, and the Democratic voters and the party's idea of what to run against him was Republican light. And I'm like, no, running an ex-Republican against a real Republican is going to be an electoral disaster. That doesn't actually mean he was popular. And I think his lack of strength with these endorsements shows that, like, the juice isn't actually there with DeSantis. People think it is. It's more of an illusion.
And also parents are starting to pay more attention now to moms because of Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty stir up this whole hornet's nest of school boards and whatnot. And now they are actually paying more attention to it.
Well, and as for Moms for Lobotomies, this would be a good time to bring back that oldie but goodie. Bye, Felicia's. Next, we're going to queer up politics. Maddow sounds alarm on GOP efforts to block election results. Rachel Maddow has expressed deep concerns about the upcoming presidential election, but not due to doubts about Democratic nominee Kamala Harris. Instead, Maddow is worried about the efforts of Trump-supporting Republicans to refuse to certify election results. In the New York Times column, Maddow draws a parallel to mid-20th century racist demagogue Gerald L.K. Smith, who once sought to overturn John F. Kennedy's victory. She warns the readers, quote, Trumpers have refined the process, end quote. Maddow points to Georgia's new election board rule allowing county officials, quote, the option to delay or refuse certification in order to make a reasonable inquiry into the results. What counts as a reasonable inquiry? The new rule does not say, end quote. The rule contradicts the Georgia law that requires officials to certify the results within a week. Maddow also mentions that in a state where Republicans have delayed or refused certification at least 7 times since 2020, the highest in the nation, this rule adds another layer of confusion to the legal landscape just 100 days before the election. Maddow foresees a potential scenario where Georgia might refuse to certify a Harris victory. She warns that similar actions could occur in other swing states as well. To combat this, she urges action, saying, quote, "Now is the time to get to know your local election board. Public awareness and vigilance can make a difference," end quote. I have to say that for a long time, especially when her show was on nightly, I considered myself a devout Maddowist. And she kind of started to go off the rails, and in my opinion, watching her was stressing me the fuck out. However, I do believe she is one of the smartest TV journalists, and I continue to trust her. She knows her stuff, and if she's using this kind of warning, I don't think it should be taken lightly.
Oh, really? Because I was on your side for a second, because I do feel like it's fear-mongering. I do feel like she's a little, sure, it is something to consider, but I just feel like it's what the Republicans and Fox News was doing to us and kind of scaring us. Now, I think we should definitely sit at the polls and make sure that the lines are moving and that, black neighborhoods, shouldn't be, 3 blocks long and taking 4 hours to vote. That's more concerning than this angle. I'm concerned about it, but I feel like this is more fear-mongering where there's other things we kind of focus on. That's my opinion.
On the other hand, I'm not worried about Georgia. The Georgian governor hates Trump. He tried to press Trump to, find the 11,000 votes so that he can win, blah, blah, blah.
But is there a state you're worried about?
In Arizona. Because Kerry Lake, Huen, the crazies are out there. The crazies are out there, and some of them are really going to try to delay or decertify results that they don't like. There are laws that were passed through state legislature in purely red states where Republicans supermajority, where they say that the legislature can replace the people's will when it comes to certify. So there is a scenario here that Maddow could be right, where let's say a red state like Kansas, where the Republicans own all branches of government, that they can just say, we do not certify that, we'll defer to legislature, and legislature overwhelming Trumpist.
I think Maddow's making some very serious points, because first, they wouldn't do that. They used to say that, you wouldn't try to use the vice president's certification process as an attempted coup and lead to the deaths of police officers in a near riot. The far right has a very specific anti-democracy plan going on that we're seeing. This thing with Georgia, or this could be a nightmare scenario in a 270 electoral college. So for those at home that don't know, you need to get 270 electoral votes to be president. So let's say it makes a difference if they win or not. You could foreseeably see a situation where the president of the United States would have to ask, do you have to send in the National Guard to certify the election? Because the Supreme Court will interfere in a non-democratic way as well. What happens if more people voted in these states for one person and they're not given it? You see in other countries, that's how civil war starts. This is all the big everything people have problems with Venezuela is this sort of scenario. This is a Venezuela-like scenario, quite frankly. And this should really be scaring the crap out of all of us, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Well, I won't be sleeping tonight.
Sorry.
We'll see. That's my point.
To help you not sleep, next up, let's queer up social justice. LGBTQ police relations is strained beyond imagination. Whose fault is it? A recent survey by sociologist Stefan Vogler from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign sheds light on the persistent and complex relations between the LGBT community and law enforcement. The study was conducted with Professor Valerie Jenis of the University of California and included a national showed only a represented sample of 1,598 people and in-depth interviews with LGBTQ participants. It found that LGBTQ individuals are more likely to be stopped, searched, arrested, and held in custody than non-LGBTQ people. Notably, 21% of LGBTQ respondents reported such encounters in the past year, compared to just 15% of non-LGBTQ respondents. The figures were even higher for transgendered individuals, with 33% reporting police-initiated contact. The study also highlights the continued use of insulting language and abuse by police officers, especially towards bisexual, transgender, non-binary, and queer individuals. Approximately 45% of transgendered respondents and 33% of non-binary respondents reported experiencing derogatory language during police interactions. Black transgender people were particularly vulnerable, with 53% reporting physical violence from police compared to 25% of white transgendered respondents. Trust in the police remains low among queer people, with only 71% stating they would call the police for help if victimized, compared to 87% of non-queer people. Over the past 30 years, the queer community has achieved significant legal victories, yet official violence and oppression persists. Negative experiences and discrimination against the community are forcing it to view enforcement with law enforcement as with distrust. You know, I was looking at this survey, and there was also other racial inequities in the survey towards Black queer people. And to be honest, like, I'm not really surprised the way the policing is in America. You know, I always try to warn people, you know, you really need to be careful when calling the police. Too often you hear about people calling the police and they're the one that end up getting shot. Yeah, right. You know, a friend of mine in Florida, a few months ago, he had a dispute with a significant other, and it was a nonviolent situation. He was like, I wanted to call the police to try and help calm him down. And it led to his significant other spending a month in jail. I'm like, well, yes, you should not call the police under almost any circumstance. Right. Active shooter? Okay, call the police for an active shooter. Right. Other than that, I'm like, be very careful about calling the police. So I'm one of those 29% that it's like, you know.
So were any of these LGBT people, like doing over 100 miles an hour on a motorcycle by any chance? I'm curious if that was involved in the arrest. Does anybody know? Okay, but no, seriously, our community has a long and questionable history with 5-0, right? The raids on Stonewall and other queer bars from time immemorial. You know, I used to think having queer people, like they've recruited a lot of queer people on police forces. Is there a change? Do we see a change?
I mean, we're relatively lucky, I think. I mean, Fort Lauderdale and Wilton-Manors Police Department, which is a region where we reside.
And Chicago has gay police.
Has been mostly decent to the LGBTQ plus community at large. But, you know, if you live in middle of nowhere, Ohio, and you're a gay person.
Well, I mean, directly answer your question, though. Alex Vitale did a book, The End of Policing. He's an expert on policing. And he didn't address queerness, but for Black communities, you need to have over a majority of the police force, I believe, become Black for racism to start declining in the police force.
I agree with that. But I mean, I think Florida in particular, I mean, we're definitely spoiled in South Florida, but Florida in particular, I think is getting better, especially when it comes to, you know, punishing police for this kind of actions. I mean, we've seen two cases, one in particular that just happened 2 days ago where the policeman was fired for calling someone a punk, who was someone else on the floor, obviously basically kicking him down, you know, while he was down. So I think we're taking action. I think it needs to get better. But in terms of Florida, I know just recently, in the last few weeks, we've been seeing a lot of actions taken on these kind of police brutality moments. So I feel a little better about it. I mean, I didn't know specifically when it comes to non-binary individuals, and it's a little alarming that only 71% of queer folk are calling the police when they're in danger, because now you are in actual danger and you're not going to call the police just because of the fact that you're used to not calling for support. And that's just triggering for me, especially for the trans community who needs it more than ever.
I hope you're right. The most horrific police story I've ever heard was a Florida police officer who, this was 2 or 3 years ago, he kept pulling people over claiming he smelled marijuana and then magically found crystal meth.
Oh, yeah.
And
really?
That was
200 or 300 people were sent to jail falsely. And I'm like, whatever we all think police, there is a little bit too much power that we put in police. And any other government employee, we don't let them get away with that sort of stuff. So I hope you're right that we make better progress on that.
I hope I'm right too, and I know that Forward Miami has done a lot of work with the police department, especially within Broward community. And we do a lot of training with staff members for police brutality in terms of in regards to black and colored folk and or brown folk and the trans community. So at least someone's trying to do something about that.
Some progress is good. Well, next, let's queer up trans rights. Transgender woman wins Democratic nomination for Florida Legislature. Ashley Brundage made history on Tuesday night by winning the Democratic nomination for Florida House District 65. Ms. Brundage is the founder and president of Empowering Differences. She won over 81% of the votes in the Democratic primary for the Florida House District 65. This means she will face incumbent Republican Representative Karen Gonzalez Pittman in November. The district favored President Joe Biden in 2020, but it swung red in 2022 when Florida Governor Ron DeSantis won re-election and pushed an anti-LGBTQ agenda. Brundage shared a post on Twitter saying, quote, "I'm incredibly honored and humbled to announce that we've won the Democratic primary election with a resounding victory over 80% for Florida State House District 65, end quote. If elected, Brundage would become the first transgender member of the Florida Legislature. She joins Nate Douglas and Joe Saunders as part of a trio of Democratic LGBTQ+ candidates vying to flip Florida House seats. Agenda PAC has already announced support for Saunders and Douglas, highlighting them as priority races nationwide. With both Saunders and Douglas winning their nominations uncontested, increased support for Brundage is anticipated as her campaign gains momentum. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think Joe Saunders is running for state senate. Or is it?
I have not been checking
I think
up on that.
his district is in Orlando. But anyways, I was reminded that Ms. Brundage's district is south of Tampa, which is the home for Tampa University. Hopefully that means that there will be a more youth-driven and more inclusive attitude towards her than other districts.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations to Ashley Brundage. This kind of fantastic primary news almost lessens the blow of Matt Gaetz's primary win.
Oh, God.
I just don't. Is that why they call this Florida? I mean, just
You're full of jokes today, huh?
horrifying.
His district is far north.
Yeah.
It's practically the deep south end.
Yeah.
I mean, unlike here, which is New York with palm trees.
We can talk about Matt for hours, but my significant other actually met Ashley at I believe it was the National LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce convention in California.
Nice.
Couple weeks ago. He says she was very nice, very kind. So very nice to hear good things about her. Because this primary was a little hard to gauge where it was going to go. But she had an opponent. He seemed to be a little bit more working class, and I thought he might be able to use that to get some votes. But clearly, sorry, man, you did not knock on any doors, mister. She probably out door knocked him.
Yeah.
Probably did good mailers, and it'll be interesting to see if she can take out the incumbent.
Yeah.
And this is great news for the transgender community as well. All right, next, let's queer up politics. This is the VP candidate you didn't know existed 30 days ago. Except for this guy, this gay student, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was recently named vice president nominee of Kamala Harris. But a month ago, most of the LGBTQ community knew nothing about him. It is now a well-established fact that he has a legacy tied to his high school years. Media has focused much on Coach Tim's roles as a faculty advisor for a gay-straight alliance club, which he helped establish during his tenure as a teacher and coach. Even Vice President Kamala Harris highlighted Walz's commitment in her speech, but very few know Gwen Walz, Tim's wife, also played an equally pivotal role. As an English teacher at the same high school, Gwen's support was crucial for a student named Jacob Radin, who faced relentless bullying for his sexuality. Rayton recalls bullying and enduring further harassment throughout high school. At age 15, Rayton was deeply impacted when Gwen Walz declared her classroom a safe space for LGBTQ students. He said, "I did not know any gay people, and there were no gay people on TV then. This gesture gave him hope and eventually led him to come out to Gwen and his parents." Gwen Walz's dedication to LGBTQ support stems from her Christian faith. Ain't that something? Emphasizing that, quote, God creates people in the way they're supposed to be, whether that is gay or straight. Inspired, Rayton founded the GSA at his high school, and Tim Walz supported distributing leaflets to promote the new club. While the nation has recently come to know about the allyship of Tim Walz, Rayton's story reveals that he was already making a difference long before his current prominence. Long before he did anything where politics were the motivation. Now, this is special to me because I wasn't out yet, but I still joined GSA, and we had a straight teacher, and kind of, what do you call it when the teachers, there's a faculty member that has to sponsor.
Yeah.
And it was shocking to me then, and it's funny because when you're in that moment, you're so scared, but then you're judging everything and you're so uneasy about it. Well, the first thing I thought was, oh, this teacher has to be gay. And it took me like 2 or 3 weeks, after doing some thorough investigation, that he wasn't. And it motivated me to be myself and to come out, because there's people out there that are going to be on my side, whether they're gay or straight, and it has nothing to do with religion, it has nothing to do with politics, it has nothing to do with my skin color. And it was so motivating, and it's so nice to hear, because this is the first time outside of my experience that I hear of someone else doing it, especially someone now that is, running for such a big position, big office, or elected position. I think this is super motivating. Shout out, obviously, to the VP candidate, but to Rayton as well, who was able to kind of give this story out and make people feel, relatable, make people feel like this is something that can happen in their community.
I mean, Coach Walsh is just giving big dad energy. Not daddy, not daddy, no. Big dad. Like, he's like the Midwestern dad everyone. But I also want to credit, Mrs. Walsh for using citing her religion as a reason to become an ally for the LGBTQ plus community. All too often, we only see in our community, we only see the Bible when they're being clonked on top of our heads by conservatives, by evangelicals, and by other bigots of all stripes. Yeah. Now there's actually someone, a vice presidential nominee's wife, who openly cites her Christian belief as a way to say, we do not discriminate against other people. That's my religious way.
This has been such a positive story, and the whole Waltz family, because yesterday was the big DNC, introducing the VP nominee. It's all just been really wonderful to see it showcased. Waltz and his wife both seem like really wonderful people, and it's been such a relief as someone who's worked for the Democratic Party before to be like, oh wow, this group, the current presidential nominee, they seem so nice and not toxic and not a giant problem, and because it's become such a rarity in politics.
No cleanup involved.
I mean,
nice.
No couches were harmed by the Waltzes.
They definitely tried too. They definitely went on search to see if there was anything you can get up Tim Walz, but
digging, yeah.
And I think we should all remember, for those of us that have had gay straight alliances in schools, it's always been wonderful. I remember my old teacher Beth Ferrani. She was a great gay straight alliance advisor. I don't know if any you've had one. Have you had a?
I think I had one, but I'm old now. I don't remember high school.
But it's life changing at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had a gay straight alliance at my school. It was the theater department.
I was going to say my school was absolutely a lot more glee than Friday Night Lights. I went to a school where theater kids reign supreme. So
and you know what's crazy? I wonder if he even because. In my GSA, you didn't mention who was part of the club. It was always during a class. So you snuck out as if you were going to the bathroom.
It wasn't like an extracurricular after school?
It wasn't after school. It was it had to have been a very, a secretive club. Because obviously that's where if you want the support, you don't want everybody to know. And so who knows if Tim did the same thing and this is the only time it's actually come out, which is great. I think it's phenomenal.
Well, notice that they brought his actual championship team on the stage, and no one has tried to switch. I mean, no one has tried. All the digging hasn't found and students that want to openly profess.
No, this is the worst, Dave. This is the worst they're going to find.
Right. Mm-hmm. Next, get ready to explore Panama's wonders on a unique Landcruise adventure. Embark on a thrilling adventure with nonprofit Hotspots Happening Out Travel Club's Panama Canal Hub and Spoke Landcruise. This 8-day adventure will include everything from exploring Panama City's bustling LGBTQ scene to cruising the iconic locks of the Panama Canal on the Pacific Queen. Revel in the lush rainforest, visit the mesmerizing Gatun Lake, and stand in awe of El Valle Anton volcano. This journey offers a rich tapestry of cultural and natural marvels with all-inclusive comforts and daily explorations. This trip promises you the magic of Panama. Book your spot today to experience it yourself. Visit happeningout.travel for more details.
Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church, right here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10 a.m.
All right, we finished tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ 1 Minute News.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up drag culture. Drag Race Delta Work can test her liquids, and we love it. Season 3 RuPaul's Drag Race alum Delta Work showcased her impressive palate on her podcast, Very Delta, by acing a blind taste test of Diet Coke variations. The episode, highlighted by Vulture, featured Delta distinguishing between 5 different Diet Coke sources: Del Taco, a plastic bottle, Burger King, McDonald's, and a can. With a perfect score of 5 out of 5, Delta Work declared, quote, "I know my shit," end quote. And we agree. Delta sounds like someone with the kind of taste buds you want around when you're not sure about that thing that's in the back of the fridge, if it's still good or not. Come here, Delta. Try this. Tell me if it's okay.
Did anyone notice that they were all like extra large, supersized drinks? Even the can was bigger than her head. I don't understand if that's part of the taste test or not, but go ahead, Delta work.
You know what's, I think, the craziest thing of the story is Delta's from season 3, which is now like 10 plus years ago. And I'm like, I remember that. That's how old I'm getting. Now I remember such a long ago thing.
Oh, I'm not saying a word.
Well then, LGBTQ 1 minute news. Let's queer up social justice. Virgin Australia loses Grindr case against a gay flight attendant. In a landmark decision, Virgin Australia has been ordered to reinstate an employee named DM after the Fair Work Commission ruled in his favor. DM, who worked for Virgin Australia from July of 2022 until February of 2022, was fired for alleged, quote-unquote, professional misconduct, end quote, including claims of being hungover and breaching alcohol rules. Virgin Australia also scrutinized DM's personal life, including a Grindr hookup during a layover, which they used to justify his dismissal. The commission criticized Virgin's handling of fatigue management and found the termination harsh. Commissioner Pearl Lim noted that similar situations would not have been scrutinized if DM were straight and it was therefore homophobic. You know, this Australia case is a great reminder to the United States that workers' rights really do matter, you know, because in America, they could so get away with this legally. And for those at home, like, well, what can we do about it at home? Well, viewers already know my answer. Find and join or create a union in your workworkplace. My goodness.
And vote. Yeah.
Unions are
sure you
vote.
Vote.
One.
No, not just vote for a union, but vote for a government that would actually approve of unions.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, and also, why the hell would Virgin Australia even try to investigate what they do? Layoff is downtime. That's downtime. What they do or who they do is not the business of the airline.
That's the part that confuses me. Like, you're checking DMs.
Yeah.
And also,
I was like, what the fuck are we talking about?
And it's downtime, or is it more like get down time?
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
Okay. Oh my.
Moving on. LGBTQ 1 minute news. Let's queer up gay culture. Alex Trebek in a jockstrap? Gay Twitter says, yes, ma'am. The gay internet is abuzz with a Wild magazine relic featuring none other than Jeopardy host Alex Trebek in a jockstrap. Thanks to drag queen Beardra Bidness tweeting this gem, we now know that Trebek had a playful side we never imagined. Or did we? This photo, which dates back to 2018 message boards, asks the age-old question, what is hot? The answer? Trebek in this unexpected bulge. It's a reminder that vintage Prince mags often took wild, creative risks, leaving us with images that will forever live rent-free in our minds. He gives daddy in this photo. I am almost upset that I like it. I don't know if it's AI generated. I don't know if it's photoshopped. I don't care. I just, for some reason, I'm into it.
And I feel now that I can no longer watch reruns of Jeopardy without me blushing and acting a bit nuts.
You know, I thought you were going to move on to something, get our mind out of the gutter, Jonathan, and this is what you show us.
I should have, I'm sorry.
I will say, too, that, you know, the vintage magazines, also known as the 2018 message boards, was so long ago.
I'll take Alex Trebek spinning in his grave for 2000, Ken.
Oh my God, yes, true
Poor
that.
thing.
He probably is.
Oh, LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up drag culture. RuPaul goes viral again, this time by changing attire. After last month's viral parallel parking lesson, RuPaul is back. This time teaching us how to change attire. Well, most of you will never have to do this because you're smart and have roadside assistance, end quote. RuPaul jokes, but he continues to walk viewers through the steps of changing tires. The new video, already blowing up on TikTok and Instagram, has fans buzzing. One fan comments, quote, RuPaul said, call me mother and father.
Let's change a tire. Now, most of you will never have to do this in your lifetimes because you're smart and you have a membership to a roadside assistance. But if you need to change a tire, I'm going to show you how to do it. But remember, Safety first. If you're in an unsafe situation, do not try this. Just wait for someone to help you. All right, here we go. Put your car in park, engage your emergency brake, and put your flashers on. Place a wedge underneath the tire that is not flat to stabilize the car. You'll need a wrench, a flathead screwdriver, and a car jack. And of course, your spare tire. If you have a hubcap, use a flathead screwdriver to remove it. Once the hubcap is removed, loosen the lug nuts on the hub, but don't fully remove them. Just loosen them for now. Locate the designated jacking port on the car and stick it in, baby. Make sure the jack is perpendicular and anchored on solid ground. Start jacking the car up to the height needed to remove the flat tire. Remove the lugs. Make sure you put them in a place you'll remember. Remove the flat tire and place it where the spare tire was. Adjust the car's height as needed to accommodate the spare tire. Align the lug nuts with the holes on the hub and tighten by hand. Lower the car and disengage the jack. Take your wrench and now fully tighten the lug nuts. Replace the hubcap and gather your tools and put them back in the trunk. Okay, my sexy drivers, now you know how to change a tire. Kids, be safe on the roads, be nice to the other drivers, and let's burn rubber.
I have to admit that I do not know how to change a tire.
That's okay.
Now I've learned a little bit more now.
Well, this bitch should have said that she was going to change the tire of an antique Mercedes. Like, Jesus, no one can relate to this video, although I give her props for removing the actual tire and putting on a new one.
Serious.
But, like, bitch, nobody's, like, putting it in park and hitting the what do you call that? Palanca. We call it palanca in Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah, the handbrake.
Yeah.
And then putting a tripod on a tire, knowing we fully have brakes on each tire now.
I mean, to be fair, the principles that she exercised is actually more or less the same whether you
Yes,
have a Honda or
Yeah.
a Mercedes.
Fine.
Yeah.
But
RuPaul is a vintage butch with a vintage Benz.
I'll say, like, I've always found it interesting that RuPaul has an interesting, she's always having some sort of conversation with younger generations, though it's great to see her once again doing something that we didn't know, but also it's nice for Hotspots to be showing this to maintain our educational nonprofit status.
fantastic. We learn something every day. And that is today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital show that changes the world with our Out of the Closet and Into the Headlines. We need your support if we're going to make sure that our community stories are told to the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Jonathan Casañas, and on behalf of these LGBTQ reporters, which I believe I got one's name wrong, these are the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Alex Morash, Gregg Shapiro, Dr. Bobby Huen. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ world, we wish you good night.
Good night.